Honorable Raila Odinga possesses the professional capacity and experience, Kenya endorses his candidature unreservedly.
These were the scenes in Nairobi, Kenya, as the leaders of the member states of the East African Community endorsed the candidature of former Kenyan Prime Minister Raila Odinga for the chairmanship of the African Union. According to President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, apparently the oldest leader in the region, Africa's problem had for long been lack of prosperity for her people, and that for Africa to achieve prosperity, the individual African countries needed to have a spirit of patriotism and Pan-Africanism to allow for collective bargaining with the rest of the world. But who really wants to take his words for serious? Other than talking like this, what benefits has African Union brought to its people in the member states? Is African Union real or simply a gang of greedy baboons sharing loot by the roadside? Well, in this video, we bring you the biggest failures of African Union that warrant the dismantling of the organization. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe, like and share the video to help many other Black people around the world find this video. So let's get started. If world organizations were musicians, African Union would surely be one with many albums stuck in the studio. For the organization is there to talk and foster false hope in the African people without any delivery. African Union preaches unity that they never practice. Under the belly of the Democratic Republic of Congo lies enormous wealth that, if properly utilized, could develop not only the Democratic Republic of Congo, but Africa at large. However, the wealth in Congo has been turned to a urinating ground for European countries, extracting all sorts of minerals that power the industries in Europe. The African Union puppets, preaching prosperity, have never come up with a strategic response to the robbery of the sister nation. Those pretending to be helping the Congo, like South African military, Uganda People's Defense Forces, and the Tanzanian military, are there for personal gains, if not serving as puppets, guarding Western thugs stealing the minerals from the Congo. Do you ever wonder why an African needs more than 54 visas to travel around Africa, while white people enter African countries at wish? African countries are very happy to grant Europeans free entry to their countries, but they will never grant the same freedom of movement to other African citizens across their border. Well, the people who are denied free movement across the borders are taxpayers whose money is used to pay for African Union membership. Is that not bogus? While African Union preaches prosperity and unity, in 2011, a coalition force of imperialist robbers invaded Tripoli and assassinated one of Africa's revolutionary leaders, Colonel Gaddafi. The organization that was meant to speak up in a united voice kept its tail under the legs, leaving Libya in a dire security vacuum. This foreign invasions into African soil did not end with the assassination of Gaddafi. Recently, the Ukrainian government, through its embassy in Ivory Coast, armed, trained, and provided crucial intelligence to insurgents affiliated to Muslim terror group to orchestrated bloody attack of the Malian forces. To even make it worse, President Ibrahim Traoré pinpointed the existence of the bases that were being used by foreign countries in Benin and Ivory Coast to destabilize the Sahel states. The chairperson of the African Union did not bother to pick interest to investigate his allegations, till Malian troops, who are African sons and daughters, were ambushed and killed in cold blood, protecting the people of Mali. Today, the 3 Sahel states have sent a petition to the United Nations Security Council, petitioning the Council to denounce Ukraine for its terrorist support in Africa. My brother, wait and see how many baboons of the African Union will speak in support of this petition. Yet they will go gather in Addis Ababa and preach unity of African states. The same Ukraine attacking the people of the Sahel is delivering maize flour to Malawi and Mozambique, and the South African countries are happy, not knowing tomorrow it will be their turn. African Union is a total disgrace to the African people, whose tax goes to pay for the membership in this sham organization. The organization only stands to serve the interests of the puppet leaders, not of the people of the motherland. As a matter of common sense, African Union is quick to condemn military coups in the continent, but never condemns constitutional coups. Let's look at Uganda, for example, where the 1995 constitution that stipulated presidential term limits and age limit was raped by Yoweri Museveni, with pretense that the people of Uganda had opted to the lifting of term limits. No single African Union signatory is concerned, and tomorrow when a bloody rebellion happens in Uganda, they will be quick to condemn those fighting for their rights. What a bunch of baboons the African Union is. In the most recent past, the presidential jet of the Nigerian president has been confiscated by France, in a clear abuse of Nigeria's sovereignty and a clear sign of bullying of an African country. Did you hear from where you are seated any African Union leader condemn this? Well, at least not from my side. In 1994, some 800,000 minority Tutsi people of Rwanda died in cold blood in a genocide. The African puppets buried their heads in the sand like ostriches, pretending that it is not raining, while their buttocks get wet. What would it have cost African Union to quickly establish an intervention force to save the lives of the Rwandan brothers and sisters? And in a mockery of those brothers and sisters who perished in Rwanda, the small, beautiful country today's pay membership to be recognized as one of the members among a bunch of baboons and puppets. Today, the United Nations accuses Rwanda and Uganda for backing the M23 rebels. Well, have you, at least from where you are seated, heard any African Union official call for an investigation into these allegations? Why should it be the United Nations to come investigate disputes between African countries when we have an African Union? Sorry, a bunch of puppet baboons. It is such a disgrace that Ethiopia houses the headquarters of the African Union. Yet since 2020, the country has been struggling with a territorial disagreement with the Tigray region and a series of attacks by the Somali Islamist group, Al-Shabaab. To the African puppet dealers, as long as the conference hall where they sit to swindle African resources to their own benefits is safe, whatever goes on in other parts of Ethiopia is never their concern. Just in the neighborhood in Somalia, the Al-Shabaab insecurity has ravaged the country that once had the fastest growing economy. Without any African Union intervention initiative, until the United States and the United Nations says, we are putting money to compensate those soldiers who are willing to die fighting the Al-Shabaab militants. That Burundi, Kenya, and Uganda, among others, rushed troops to Somalia. The question, therefore, is the so-called African Union Stabilization Force in Somalia there in the interest of the people of Somalia or for the money provided by the USA? The answer is pretty simple. They are there for the money. That is why military force is being used against the Al-Shabaab militants as opposed to finding a lasting political solution to the problem. The violence in the Sahel region has claimed more than 1 million lives, and African Union never sees this. Rather, they see the need to blame the nations of the Alliance of the Sahel states for taking matters of their states in their own hands. Another serious regional conflict is brewing between Egypt and Ethiopia, following Ethiopia's decision to construct a hydropower dam along the Nile. This conflict is looked at as a matter that concerns the countries that share the water of the Nile. The so-called puppets of the African Union never imagined how broad the conflict could affect the entire continent. From 1987 to early 2020s, more than 400,000 people were displaced in northern Uganda by the Lord's Resistance Army Rebellion, where a considerable number of lives were lost and millions displaced. The African Union leadership sat back and watched the news on international media, waiting for the United States of America to send Marines to hunt for the leaders of the rebellion. Disgracefully, the people of northern Uganda today pay taxes that are paid in membership of Uganda to the African Union, to an organization that could not protect them at the time they needed protection most. What a bunch of greedy baboons that sleeps in Addis Ababa. The conflict in the Republic of Sudan is today described by the United Nations as the worst humanitarian crisis of the century, characterized by loss of hundreds of thousands of lives and more than 1 million displacement. My brother, have you heard the African Union officials suggest a lasting political solution to end the crisis? Certainly not. They are watching the news coming from Sudan in their hotel apartments, courtesy of the African taxpayers. Watching and waiting to document another genocide in Sudan. The failures of African Union can be seen everywhere around the continent. Look at the crisis in Central African Republic where the sitting president spends the taxpayers' money to hire the services of the Wagner mercenaries to protect himself. Where is African Union? Maybe we will hear about them when all the people of Central African Republic are dead, and they will go to the UN General Assembly to take pictures and offer good condolence speeches. I cannot even talk about the mess in Mozambique that Rwanda is trying to help the government there solve. But the failures of the African Union all boil down to failure of the organization to work for the good of the ordinary African people. Rather, the organization only works to the interest of the puppet dealers. Look at countries like Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Congo-Brazzaville, Angola, and Uganda, where old puppets have been stuck in power for decades. What does the African Union think about this? What genuine conversation are they having about the political futures of these countries? Absolutely nothing, except waiting for the young population to get frustrated and launch rebellion, or the military leaders to orchestrate a coup. Then they will condemn the coup. What a bunch of hooligans. From wherever you're watching, add your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for watching. Remember to share the video and give us a like.